Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from chapter 5 of the Madhya Lila from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The activities of Sākṣi-gopāla. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tamam vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary of the 5th chapter in his Amrit Pravaha Bhashya. After passing through Yajpur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached the town of Katak and there went to see the temple of Sākṣi-gopāla. While there, he heard the story of Sākṣi-gopāla from the mouth of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Once there were two Brahmins, one elderly and the other young, who were inhabitants of a place known as Vidyanagar. After touring many places of pilgrimage, the two Brahmins finally reached Vrindavan. The elderly Brahman was very satisfied with the service of the young Brahman and he wanted to offer him his youngest daughter in marriage. The young Brahmana received the promise of his elder before the Gopal deity of Vrindavan. Thus the Gopal deity acted as witness. When the two Brahmans returned to Vidyanagar, the younger Brahman raised the question of this marriage, but the elderly Brahman, due to obligations to his friends and wife, answered that he could not remember his promise. Because of this, the younger Brahman returned to Vrindavan and narrated the whole story to Gopalji. Thus Gopalji, being obliged by the young man's devotional service, accompanied him to the southern India. Gopalji followed the younger Brahmana, who could hear the tinkling sound of Gopalji's ankle bells. When all the respectable gentlemen of Vidyanagar were assembled, Gopalji testified to the promise of the elderly Brahman. Thus the marriage was performed. Later, the king of that country constructed a fine temple for Gopal. Afterwards, King Purushottam Dev of Orissa was insulted by the king of Vidyanagar, who refused to give him his daughter in marriage and called him a sweeper of Lord Jagannath. With the help of Lord Jagannath, King Purushottam Dev fought the king of Vidyanagar and defeated him. Thus he took the charge of both the king's daughter and his kingdom as well. At that time, Gopalji, being very much obliged by the devotional service of King Purushottam Dev, was brought to the town of Katak. After hearing this narration, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Gopal in great ecstasy of love of God. From Katak he went to Bhuvaneshwar and saw the temple of Lord Shiva. In this way he gradually arrived at Kamalpura, and on the banks of Bhargi river he came to the temple of Lord Shiva, where he entrusted his sannyas staff to Nityananda Prabhu. However, Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 pieces and threw it into the Bhargi river at a place known as Atharnal. Being angry at not getting his staff back, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the company of Nityananda Prabhu and went alone to see the Jagannath temple. Verse 5.1. Pad bhayam chalan yah pratima swarupo brahmane devo hi shatah gamyam desham yayayo viprakrite adbhute aham tam Sākṣi-gopālam aham natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God, Brahmanaya Devaya, who appeared as Sākṣi-gopāla to benefit a Brahman. For 100 days he travelled through the country walking on his own legs, thus his activities are wonderful. Verse 5.2. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 5.3. Chalite Chalite Aila Yajpura Grama Varaha Thakur Dekhi Karila Pranam. Walking and walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his party finally arrived at Yajpura on the river Vaitarani. There he saw the temple of Varahadev and offered his obeisances unto him. Verse 5.4. Nritya Geet Kaila Preme Bahuta Stavana Yajpure Se Ratri Karila Yapana. In the temple of Varahadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in that temple. Verse 5.5. Katake Aila Sākṣi-gopāla Dekhite Gopala Saundarya Dekhi Haila Anandite. Afterwards, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Katak to see the temple of the witness Gopal. When he saw the deity of Gopal, he was very much pleased by his beauty. Verse 5.6 Prema Veshe Nritya Geeta Kaila Katakshana Avishta Hena Kaila Gopal Stavana. While there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, and being overwhelmed, he offered many prayers to Gopal. Verse 5.7 Sai Ratri Tahan Rahi Bhakta Gana Sange Gopalera Purve Katha Shune Bahurange. That night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the temple of Gopal, and along with all the devotees, he heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. Verse 5.8 Nityananda Gosani Yabe Tirtha Brahmila Sākṣi-Gopāla Dekhi Bare Katak Aila. Previously, when Nityananda Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he also had come to see Sākṣi-Gopāla at Katak. Verse 5.9 Sākṣi-Gopālera Katha Shuni Loka Mukhe Se Katha Kahena Prabhu Shune Mahasukhe. At that time, Nityananda Prabhu had heard the story of Sākṣi-Gopāla from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. Purport: the Sākṣi-Gopāla temple is situated between Khurda Road railway station and the Jagannath Puri station. The deity is not presently situated in Katak, but when Nityananda Prabhu travelled there, the deity was present. Katak is a town of Orissa situated on the Mahanadi river. When Sākṣi-Gopāla was brought from Vidyanagar in southern India, he stayed for some time at Katak. Thereafter, he was situated for some time in the Jagannath temple. It seems that the temple of Jagannath, there was some disagreement between Jagannath and Sākṣi-Gopāla, a disagreement called Prema Kalha, a quarrel of love. In order to settle this love quarrel, the king of Orissa constructed a village about 11 miles from Jagannath Puri. This village was called Satyavadi, and Gopal was stationed there. Thereafter, a new temple was constructed. Now there is Sākṣi-Gopāla station, and people go to the Satyavadi to see the witness Gopal. Verse 5.10 Purva Vidya Nagarera Dui Ta Brahmana Tirth Karibare Dunhe Karila Gamana. Formerly at Vidyanagar in South India, there were two Brahmins who made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. Verse 5.11 Gaya Varanasi Prayag Sakala Kariya Mathurate Aila Dunhe Anandita Hena. First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayag. Finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura. Verse 5.12 Vana Yatraya Vana Dekhi Dekhi Govardhana Dwadasha Vana Dekhi Shesh Gela Vrindavan. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests, vanas, and at last came into the town of Vrindavan. Purport: the 5 forests situated on the eastern side of the river Yamuna are Bhadra, Bilva, Loha, Bhandira, and Mahavan. The 7 forests situated on the western side of the Yamuna are Madhu, Tal, Kumud, Bahula, Kamya, Khadira, and Vrindavan. After visiting all these forests, these pilgrims went to a place known as Panchakroshi Vrindavan. Out of the 12 forests, the Vrindavan forest extends from the town of Vrindavan to the Nandagram and Varshana, a distance of 32 miles, within which the Panchakroshi Vrindavan town is situated. Verse 5.13 Vrindavane Govinda Sthane Maha Devalaya Se Mandire Gopalera Maha Seva Haya. In the village of Panchakroshi Vrindavan, at the site where Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopala was performed. Verse 5.14 Keshi Tirath Kalya Haradai Dike Kaila Snana Shri Gopala Dekhi Taha Karila Vishram. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Yamuna, such as Keshi Ghat and Kaliya Ghat, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopala. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. Verse 5.15 Gopala Saundarya Dunhar Mana Nila Hari Sukha Pana Rahe Tahan Deen Dui Chari. The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. Verse 5.16 Dui Vipra Madhye Eka Vipra Vridha Praya Ar Vipra Yuva Tanra Karena Sahaya. One of the 2 Brahmins was an old man and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old one. Verse 5.17 Chota Vipra Kare Sada Tanhara Sevana Tanhara Sevaya Viprera Tushta Haila Mana. Indeed, the young Brahman always rendered service to the older one, and the old man, being very satisfied with his service, was pleased with him. Verse 5.18 Vipra Bale Tumi Mora Bahu Seva Kaila Sahai Hena Mora Tirtha Karaila. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You have assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage." Verse 5.19 Putriyo pitar aiche na kare sevana tomar prasade ami na pailama shrama. Even my own sons does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. Verse 5.20 Krita Gnata Haya Tomaya na Kaila Sammana Ataiva Tomaya Ami Diva Kanyatan. I did not show you any respect. I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise you to give you my daughter in charity. Verse 5.21 Chota Vipra Kahe Shuna Vipra Mahashay Asambhava Kahe Kene Ye Nahi Haya. The younger Brahman replied, "My dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Such a thing never happens." 5.22 verse Maha Kulina Tumi Vidya Dhanadi Pravina Ami Akulina Ar Dhana Vidya Hina. You are a most aristocratic family man, well educated and very rich. I am not at all aristocratic, and I am without a decent education and have no wealth. Purport: due to past activities, one can be enriched by 4 opulences. One may obtain birth in an aristocratic family, become highly educated, become very beautiful, or get a sufficient quantity of riches. These are symptoms of pious activities performed in one's past life. In India, it is still current for an aristocratic family never to consider a marriage with a common family. Though the caste may be the same, to maintain the aristocracy, such marriages are rejected. No poor man will dare marry the daughter of a rich man. Because of this, when the elderly Brahman offered the young Brahman his daughter, the young Brahman did not believe that it would be possible to marry her. Therefore, he asked the elderly Brahman why he was proposing something unprecedented, asambhav. It was unheard for an aristocratic person to offer his daughter to a person who was both uneducated and poor. Verse 5.23 Kanya Dan Patra Ami Naha Tumar Nahi Tumar Krishna Pritye Kari Tomar Seva Vyavhar. Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. Purport: both Brahmins were pure Vaishnavas. The younger man took special care of the older one simply to please Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.19.21, Krishna says, Mad Bhakta Pujya Haidhika. It is better to render service to my devotee. Thus, according to the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is better to be a servant of the servant of God. One should not try to serve Krishna directly. A pure Vaishnava serves a servant of Krishna and identifies himself as a servant of Krishna. This is pleasing to Lord Krishna. Srila Narottam Das Thakur confirms this philosophy. Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistar Peche Keba. Unless one serves a liberated Vaishnava, he cannot attain liberation by directly serving Krishna. He must serve the servant of Krishna. Verse 5.24 Brahman Sevaya Krishnera Priti Badahaya Tanhar Santoshe Bhakti Sampad Badai. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. Purport: in this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that the younger Brahmanas rendered service to the older one with the purpose of pleasing Krishna. It was not a matter of ordinary worldly dealings. Krishna is pleased when a Vaishnava is rendered service. Because the younger Brahmana served the older one, Lord Gopal agreed to become a witness of the marriage negotiation in order to maintain the prestige of both devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would certainly not have liked to hear about marital dealings unless such dealings were exchanged between two Vaishnavas. Marriage arrangements and ceremonies belong to the ordinary material Karma Kanda section of the scriptures. Thus, Vaishnavas who are not interested in any kind of Karma Kanda dealings. Narottam Das Thakur says, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kevala Vishera Bhanda. For a Vaishnava, the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda sections of the Vedas are unnecessary. Indeed, a real Vaishnava takes these sections as a poison pot with his Vishera Bhanda. Sometimes we take the part in a marriage ceremony for our disciples, but this does not mean that we are interested in Karma Kanda activities. Sometimes, not knowing the Vaishnava philosophy, an outsider criticizes such an activity, maintaining that a sannyasi should not take part in marriage ceremony between a young boy and a young girl. However, this is not true. This is not a Karma Kanda activity because our purpose is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. We are not giving all facility to the general public to take Krishna consciousness. In order to fix the devotees in concentration on the service of the Lord, marriage is sometimes allowed. We have experienced that such married couples actually render very important service to the mission. Therefore, one should not misunderstand. When a sannyasi takes part in a marriage ceremony, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu took great pleasure in hearing about the marriage ceremony between the young Brahman and the daughter of the elderly Brahman. Verse 5.25 Bada Vipra kahe tumi na kara samshay tomake kanya diba ami karila nischay. Then the older Brahman said, My dear boy, do not doubt me. I will give my daughter to charity. I have already decided this. Verse 5.5 Bada Vipra kahe tumi na kara samshay tomake kanya diba ami karila nischay. The older Brahman replied, My dear boy, do not doubt. I will give you my daughter in charity. I have already decided this. Verse 5.26 Chota Vipra bale tamar stri putra saba bahu janati goshti tomar bahut bandav. The young Brahman said, You have a wife and sons, and you have a large circle of relatives and friends. Verse 5.27 Eta shabar samati vina nahe kanyadan rukminira pita bhishmaka tahate pramana. Without the consent of all your friends and relatives, it is not possible to give me your daughter in charity, just because the story of Queen Rukmini and her father Bhishma. So we will continue our reading from verse 5.28 next time of the Madhya Lila. Here we are reading all about the activities of Sākṣi-Gopāla. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.